Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into the really unexpected story of LSD. It's a compound that started its journey almost by chance.
Right. We're talking lysergic acid diethylamide, first synthesized back in 1938 by Dr. Albert Hoffman, a Swiss chemist at Sandow's labs.
But the key moment, the part everyone sort of knows, wasn't until 1943, right? That's when the psychoactive effects became clear.
Exactly. He'd made it 5 years earlier,
Yeah.
but its potential, let's say, wasn't understood. It was pure accident in 43.
An accident? How so?
Well, the story goes he unintentionally absorbed a really small amount, maybe through his fingertip.
He absorbed it.
Yeah. And then he started feeling, well, different, altered perceptions, kind of dreamlike. It was totally unplanned.
Okay, and that leads to the famous part, the bicycle ride.
That's the one. So after that first accidental exposure, Hoffman, being a scientist, decided to deliberately take what he thought was a tiny dose, 250 micrograms, to investigate properly.
Which turned out to be not so tiny.
Not tiny at all, especially for a first intentional dose. The effects came on much stronger. And as things intensified, he asked his assistant to help him get home by bicycle because of wartime restrictions on cars.
Wow. Riding a bike while experiencing the first intentional LSD trip.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That ride home through Basel has become, like, legendary. It's the first real documented human experience of its powerful effects.
An absolutely wild beginning. So, okay, after this psychedelic commute, what happens? Sandoz must have taken notice.
Oh, definitely. Hoffman reported his findings, and Sandoz saw potential. They started marketing it under the name Delicid.
Delicid. And this was for what exactly?
Primarily for psychiatric research. There was a lot of initial optimism, actually.
And optimism about treating mental illness.
Yeah, several angles. Some researchers thought maybe it could temporarily mimic psychosis, helping them understand conditions like schizophrenia. Others explored what they called psycholytic therapy, using low doses to sort of lower defenses, maybe access repressed stuff. And then psychedelic therapy, using higher doses for more profound, sometimes spiritual insight experiences.
So quite a range of ideas early on. Any key figures driving this?
Absolutely. You had people like Humphrey Osmond, Stanislav Grof, serious researchers looking into these different paths. There was real hope, that this could unlock something about the mind.
But it didn't stay contained within psychiatry for long, did it?
Not at all. Things started shifting. It moved, beyond the clinical setting into more philosophical and spiritual circles.
Right. People like Aldous Huxley.
Exactly. Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception, though about mescaline, definitely fueled interest in consciousness expansion. And then Timothy Leary became a huge proponent advocating for LSD's use for, like, personal growth and self-discovery.
The whole turn on, tune in, drop out thing.
Pretty much. That marked a big cultural turning point. This idea of a psychedelic revolution started taking hold.
And that leads straight into the counterculture adopting it.
Absolutely. Mid-60s into the 70s, LSD became deeply intertwined with the counterculture movement. You saw it linked with anti-war protests, free love, experimental art, psychedelic rock music.
It became a symbol.
A symbol of challenging norms, exploring consciousness, seeking alternatives. But, that widespread use, often outside of any controls, that started raising flags.
Concerns started popping up.
Yeah. Stories about bad trips, anxieties about potential long-term psychological harm, worries about societal disruption. The media often focused on these negatives.
Fueling public fear, I imagine.
Definitely. And that fear, combined with the establishment's unease about the counterculture, it led to a major backlash.
Which resulted in prohibition.
Exactly. Late 60s, early 70s, LSD was criminalized across the board. Research pretty much ground to a halt. It went from potential therapeutic tool to, public enemy number one almost overnight.
A dramatic shift. But the story didn't totally end there, did it? We're seeing a comeback in research now.
That's right. In recent decades, there's been a real resurgence of interest. Carefully controlled scientific studies are back on the table.
Looking at what specifically?
Things like treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, particularly end-of-life anxiety, PTSD, addiction, areas where current treatments maybe aren't always effective.
So we've kind of circled back, in a way, back to the science.
In a sense, yes, but with much more caution, rigorous methodology, and a focus on safety in specific therapeutic contexts. It's cautious optimism this time around.
It's such a complex history, from a lab mistake in that unbelievable bike ride to a cultural icon, then banned, and now back in the lab, potentially helping people.
It really is. It touches on science, culture, fear, hope, the whole spectrum.
A fascinating journey indeed. And perhaps something to think about is this. What does this whole roller coaster story of LSD, starting with that accidental discovery, tell us about how we as a society react to things that challenge our understanding of the mind and consciousness?